Hi, everybody. Today's Friday, January 10th, and our friend Larry Johnson is back with us. Welcome back, Larry.
I'm always happy to be with you, Nima.
As we talk large scale joint airstrikes by Israel, the United States, and the United Kingdom target the capital of Yemen, Sana'a. What's going on, Larry? In your opinion, how long do they want to continue this way with the case of Yemen?
Well, it's going to go on until somebody runs out of missiles, rockets, or bombs. This is a clear example of rage and frustration and impotence. The United States has pretended to be this mighty military power, and yet they cannot defeat the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, the Houthis are not exactly ranked in the top 10 of military forces in the world, but by God, they are tenacious fighters. And it exposes really the criminal conduct of Washington, London, and Israel. You're bombing the capital. The capital's not launching the missiles. The missiles are out in the desert. So the missiles are in mountain valleys. So this is just to try to punish. But even then, they sort of pulled up short. The good news was there was a massive rally of Houthis in Sana'a and supporters of the government, and they were not attacked, thankfully, because there was more than I think 1 million people assembled there. But this again, this is the point of using force, using violence, is to eliminate or defeat a threat. But when all you're doing is trying to um, antagonize, is probably the best way to describe it. That's all the Brits and the Americans are doing. You know, what do they blow up a chicken coop? Maybe they hit a military headquarters, but so far, all military decisions in Yemen, they've continued to, without pause, over God, we're now 12 months into 13 months into this. Could anyone have imagined back in December of 2023 when Lloyd Austin announced the start of Operation Prosperity Guardian that 13 months later the Houthis would still be firing missiles off into Israel, and they would be attacking ships in the Red Sea, and maritime traffic in the Red Sea would still be shut down? This after the supposedly the most mighty military power on the face of the earth can't stop it, can't fix it. So, this is just more what I'd call senseless violence on the part of the West.
Larry, the missile production in Yemen is indigenous or they're importing these missiles?
I don't know. I would suspect some of it's, significant portions imported. But I also have been told that they've got their own ability to produce internally. So, I've not had any access to the classified information on that. All I know is they still got a lot of missiles, and they're still able to keep firing there, and they've been firing some very sophisticated hypersonic missiles that the Israelis have been unable to shoot down. That should catch everyone's attention.
And here comes the situation in Yemen. We know that these people, this country has suffered a lot of conflicts, wars, hunger, everything, all sort of pressures on them, but they couldn't break them. They couldn't defeat them.
Right.
And right now, the way that you see the United States is behaving as though they can defeat Yemenis, or there are some elite leaders above them that they, by killing them, as Israel was talking about, by removing them, by assassinating them, they can defeat Yemenis. How how is that going to work in reality? Do they have Does it have anything to do with the reality of this fight between the West and Yemenis?
Well, no. Look, what it's showing are the limitations of conventional military power. The United States is still operating on what I'd call a 20th century model. And in the 20th century, you deploy military force, you launch bombing raids, you launch naval gunfire, you do all these things, and the other side acquiesces, gives up. Now we're in the 21st century, and we're seeing something different. And it's not just with the United States. It's also with Israel. Here is Israel touted as, and they do have a significant, one of the strongest military forces in terms, if you measure by manpower, different types of weapon systems, using the combination of combat air and tank armored units, with all those advantages. And their response to the October 7th attack was to try to destroy Gaza. Ostensibly they were going to defeat Hamas, but they really wanted to destroy Gaza. And it's not like Gaza is, Russia. It doesn't stretch across 11 time zones. It's a very small, it's really roughly about the size of all of New York City, metropolitan New York City. And so when you've got a very well-defined target with defined borders, and it's not like, Hamas didn't have a line of communication, that they could use going, either through the maritime route or a land route. It's not like they bordered Egypt and the Egyptians could resupply them. So they had every disadvantage. And yet, here we are 14 months since Israel started its attacks on Hamas, and Hamas is still killing Israeli soldiers. Israel has not been able to quiet and contain it. That's the same thing that we're witnessing in Yemen. The United States has put a carrier task force group in there, and we're going to show them. And we've launched bombing strikes off of carriers. We've launched B-1 bombers sent from other bigger bases. And what we're running up against is that when the Houthis are using mobile missile launchers, the key word there is mobile. It moves around, and the United States, despite all of its technological prowess and sophistication, still has not managed to create what I call the Eye of Sauron, based on Lord of the Rings, this all-seeing eye that exactly where somebody or something is at any particular time, and you can reach out and destroy it. That's turned out not to be the case. So in exposing the limitations of U.S. military power, this thing's going to continue. The only way to end it would be to kill all the Houthis. Is that what the United States is going to do? Engage in genocide? This is just, this. I think this is working against the United States, is exposing it as an impotent power, at least with respect to taking care of the situation in the Red Sea.
Or maybe forcing Netanyahu to stop the genocide in Gaza. That's why they can stop this attack on Israel.
Well, that's
the way to stop it, because that's so simple. They just want to Israel stopping this genocide in Gaza. That's why they're attacking Israel. So
yeah, that would be the way to end it, and that's, give the Houthis credit. They are the only ones fighting for the Palestinian people, and the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Turks, the Saudis, they're all cowards. They're all a bunch of disgraceful cowards. And, the United States is an enabler of genocide, unfortunately. I interviewed Mazen Kumsia yesterday, talked to him. He is lives in the West Bank, Palestinian, a doctor, a PhD in biology, taught at Yale University. But he's a Christian, a Greek Orthodox Christian, and yet he has been fighting, upholding the rights of the Palestinians, trying to secure their rights for all of his life. And his is an example of what Israel's trying to destroy. He's not a violent man, and we need to understand that much, perhaps all of the violence that has been carried out by Palestinians against Israelis is motivated out of revenge, out of anger, directed at Israel that has come in and stolen their land. The talking to Mason and with respect to he's Palestinian. Well, his parents were born there, his grandparents were born there, his grandparents' grandparents were born there. His grandparent. I mean, it goes back. I said, was there ever a time when your family moved here? Your relatives, your ancestors moved to this land from some other place? No. They've been there all along. They are the original inhabitants, going back to the Canaanites, going back 3,000 years. So this is, what the United States is promoting and enabling right now, both in Israel, in Palestine, and carrying on these attacks carried out in Yemen. It's wrong. It's evil, in my view.
The other thing, Larry, right now we've learned that Lebanon, after years, has a new president, Joseph Aoun. What do we know about him, and what are the objectives of this administration in Lebanon? Are they gonna unify Lebanon? Are they gonna be on the part of the West fighting Hezbollah? What would happen internally in Lebanon?
Well, at a minimum now, it gives the West somebody to talk to. General Aoun is a Maronite Christian, is my understanding. But he came to power by, crafting a deal that with Hezbollah. So he is not starting off as someone vowing to destroy Hezbollah. That's what the West wants. What the West wants is the Lebanese army to, gear up and head south and fight and destroy Hezbollah. Now, the reality is Hezbollah had probably destroyed the Lebanese army. Hezbollah, I believe, is far more capable militarily. We'll see. The jury's out. I don't know if Aoun is just going to be another tool and surrender to the West to be their boy, their house servant, their house Negro, a slave, or if he's going to actually stand up and say, hey, I'm a president of this country, and we're going to, the United States and these foreign powers, you're going to stop telling us what to do. We're going to, determine our own way. I don't know what he will do.
What do we expect from Iran? Their movement in terms of their military shows that they're getting prepared for any sort of scenario on the part of the West. But from what we've seen so far, from Trump, from Israelis, how do you expect the situation between the West, the United States, and Iran?
A lot depends upon what Trump does right now. We saw some signs in the last couple of days that despite Trump's bombastic statements and, we're going to take over Greenland and take over Canada and attack Panama, that in reality Trump is working the diplomatic angle behind the scenes. For example, last night he admitted that he said, "Hey, yeah, we're in talks to talk to Putin and talking to Xi. He wants to talk to Xi Jinping. I think is a way to help, broker contacts both with Russia and with Iran." When Trump released Jeffrey Sachs' commentary at the Oxford Union, and I think you played that the other day on your show. Where where Sachs calls Netanyahu a deep, dark son of a bitch, which, Jeffrey's normally not one to use language like that, but I think it was entirely appropriate and accurate description of what Netanyahu is. That's got to have caused Netanyahu to go, oh, wait a second. Trump's putting this out as saying, hey, this is worth paying attention to. So maybe Trump is keen on actually negotiating a settlement. I don't see Iran is not of the mind that it's going to fight its way out of this militarily. Now, I saw your conversation with Graham Fuller, and I guess he turned the question around to you as far as what is there. Is President Pezeshkian sort of taking Iran in a different direction from Ayatollah Khamenei, and that is there a big split developing there, or is Iran still pretty much together? We keep hearing different sources in the West keep saying, oh, Iran's in real trouble, the economy is terrible, they're suffering, there's great internal dissent. I don't believe that necessarily, simply because I chalk it up to this disinformation that is constantly being put out by the West. We've seen it with respect to Russia. But, I do believe that Iran is willing to negotiate. And we're now starting to see, the commentary out of Israel where, well, maybe Iran's not our biggest threat. Maybe it's Turkey, which is, you think? So this, the situation in that entire area that encompasses from Israel, Palestine, Egypt is chaotic, just completely chaotic.
Yeah.
By the way, so remember I was saying, right after Assad was ousted, and people said, "Oh boy, this is a big loss. Iran, the big loser. Iran's really the loser. They can't. There's no longer smuggling. They're not going to ship the weapons to Hezbollah." Well, now what we've heard is they reestablished. They had other lines. There are other ways to move weapons to Hezbollah, which they have been used through ancient smuggling routes. I think what people fail to consider is that one of the reasons Iran went through Syria was, if you will, it was trying to at least show respect to Syrian sovereignty, to not do something out of Syria's knowledge or control. And the same with Lebanon. So, and what we've also discovered in the last 2 or 3 weeks is that when that arrangement was in place between Iran and Syria, that the Israeli intelligence service had penetrated Syrian intelligence and military service. So they knew exactly what was going on with Iran. They had information. Now that those Syrian entities have been dismantled, or are now under the control of HTS, Israel is blind. It doesn't know what Iran's doing. So, as I said, this notion that all of this brought everything, put Israel and Turkey in the driver's seat is just crazy.
As you mentioned in the Jerusalem Post, there was an article according to a government committee in Israel that
Yeah.
Israel must be prepared for a potential war with Turkey or Turkey.
Yeah.
How is that? Is that a legitimate concern on their part, in your opinion?
Well, absolutely. Well, do you take the son of Erdogan seriously? Where 2 weeks ago he held a rally, and basically it was the next stop is Jerusalem, Al Aqsa Mosque. Turkey controlled Jerusalem for almost 600 years. They got sort of used to it. They're willing. They're expressing a willingness to go back. I mean, the only reason they're not there now was because they chose the wrong side in World War One, and the Brits forced them out, and carved up this area that we call the Middle East or West Asia, whichever one you prefer. And so, yeah, Turkey. There is the fact that they've aligned themselves with the likes of HTS, and the notion that, oh, HTS, yeah, they love the Jews. They can't wait to get along with Israel. Cut me a break. Good God. This kind of nonsense has been prevalent within both Israel and Washington, D.C. over the last 60 years, and it always ends up blowing back on them.
And they don't learn anything from what has happened so far.
Yeah, flat, man, this is a flat learning curve.
The memory doesn't work.
Yeah, learning nothing. Keep hitting themselves in the hand with a hammer going, God, that hurts. And then they hit them again. Oh, man, that hurts. Hey, stop hitting yourself with the hammer.
Terry, if we assume that Israel is right and there could be some sort of direct conflict between Israel and Turkey, how is Israel capable of fighting Turkey on
Oh,
the
no.
ground?
Dude, come on. They're not capable of fighting Hamas. I mean, seriously. They have been unable to defeat Hamas. Yeah, they're good at killing women and children. They're good at killing unarmed people. But Israel does not have unlimited military resources. And so it's already in a fight in Gaza. It's in a fight in the West Bank. It's tried to fight and it lost in Lebanon. Had to beg for a ceasefire in order to try to salvage its reputation. Now it's expanded operations into Syria, into the Golan Heights and surrounding areas. It's overstretched, and then it's going to take on Turkey. No, not in anybody's reality would that happen, or that they would succeed. This is, I've said it, for quite a while. Israel cannot fight its way to peace. Ultimately, it's going to have to negotiate and make some concessions, but the problem is it is under the control of religious fanatics who are not about to do anything that would be conciliatory or from a negotiated standpoint. They're not going to do it. So I think they're going to continue this route until they destroy themselves through their military overreach. That's where it's headed. Is that, I don't know if that's going to happen in the next year or 2 years, but it's ultimately going to happen. They cannot sustain this. This is an unsustainable path that they're on.
As you mentioned, we're witnessing that Donald Trump is intimidating the countries or maybe Gazans, Hamas, to release the hostages before he takes office in Washington, which is in 10 days. And on the other hand, you see published this video of Jeffrey Sachs to I do believe he wants to put some sort of pressure on Netanyahu.
Yeah.
Because he wants to bring he's not interested in the Middle East. The main goal of Donald Trump is something else. I can say that. in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's not going to focus on the Middle East, because that's not a strategic point for him.
Well, look. When Trump said, laid out the deadline to either release the hostages by the time I'm sworn in, or there'll be hell to pay. That's just bombast. He can say that, but what is he going to do? Drop more bombs on Gaza? Well, that's, there's nothing left standing practically. So that, that's not going to persuade Hamas to give up. Actually, reports are Hamas has been according to Israeli sources, Hamas recruitment has been going up. They're attracting more fighters, more people willing to fight and resist the Israelis. If some people say, oh, he needs to unleash Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the hostage rescue teams. Please. Look, I spent 23 years scripting the terrorism exercises for those units. All sorts of scenarios, but scenarios including hostage rescue. People just don't understand what is required to first obtain information about where the hostages are located, and to have a degree of confidence that they are there. You can access it, and then get people in, get people out. So you've got that factor to consider. We saw what happened when the United States tried to, when they killed bin Laden in Pakistan. It was presented that this was some top secret operation. We carried that out with the full knowledge of the Pakistani authorities. We finally went to them and said, "Hey, we know you're keeping him there. We know he's under sort of house arrest. The gig is up. We're gonna go get him." And they said, "Okay." And even with all that, one of the helicopters crashed. A couple of guys got injured. It didn't go smoothly. So there is no top secret special operations move that can be made that's going to make the lives of the Hamas fighters worse. So I think part of the reason Trump's putting that out there is that, in fact, there are other talks, negotiations going on behind the scenes, that there will be a deal reached, and then Trump would be able to take credit, say, "See, my tough guy approach produced these results." I think that's what's going on, but we'll see.
Here is, Larry, an article in the Politico talking about Greenland, that it says that the army of Denmark is so weakened during the conflict in Ukraine that they cannot fight any sort of war with the United States on Greenland. How serious is this situation with Greenland? Here is what Donald Trump said, Larry.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know. Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up, because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
You guys just have to draw plans for.
Yeah.
Today I talked with Gilbert Doctorow.
Yeah.
he has mentioned that this is a distraction from what's going on in Ukraine because they don't want to accept that they have been humiliated in Ukraine and they're bringing something up just to feed the press, the news with these type of shocking news with Greenland, the Gulf of Mexico being the Gulf of America, Panama Canal, all of that. Canada, which is insane for anyone who is hearing about Canada being part of the United States. What's your take on that?
Oh, it's possible. That they're trying to use this as a distraction, but it's going after Greenland in this way. I think one, there's never going to be, U.S. is not going to militarily take over Greenland. Trump is just, I don't want to say he's kidding, but he's trolling on that. But it does have the ancillary effects of helping destroy NATO. And Trump, at least the people I think pushing this with Trump recognize that there are significant resources to be tapped into in the Arctic, and that the United States is not anywhere near prepared to try to participate in that race for the Arctic resources. Even I don't know if it was you that played the clip or somebody else the other day with Mike Waltz talking about Greenland and talking about the Arctic Circle, and made note that Russia has 60 icebreakers, including several of them are nuclear powered. The United States, and then he said, the United States has 2, but one of them caught on fire. Okay, that would be the United States has 1 icebreaker. So who can move around the Arctic Circle? The other thing was I think I heard Waltz suggest that the ice, that the area was becoming less ice packed and more open water, and that's just not true. It's just the opposite. The ice pack has extended over the last 3-4 years, according to the data. So you're going to need more icebreakers. And the point is, the United States is not positioned in any way to actually compete with the Russians and the Chinese for the resources that are in the Arctic Circle. So Greenland is seen as, because of its proximity to the United States and the fact that it is, it's already an accessible landmass, let's put it that way, that the United States might actually be able to cut a deal with Denmark, or Denmark has already signaled that, hey, if whatever the people of Greenland decide, if they want to have a referendum, a plebiscite, that they can choose their own government, that they'll go their own way. And maybe Greenland will suddenly declare itself, hey, we're an independent country, but we would welcome business with the United States. That could be what's going on. But this, I think that there was more to this than just simply trying to create a distraction for the impending defeat in Ukraine. I don't think that's the primary reason, but it is one reason, and but it also it ends up undermining NATO, because you've already got fractures with Slovakia, with Romania apparently on the verge, with Austria, with Hungary, and now if Denmark gets into a pissing match with Donald Trump and the United States, that is less unity on the NATO front.
When you hear Political is talking about that the army of Denmark was weakened during the conflict in Ukraine, so let's imagine what has happened to France, Germany, United Kingdom, and because they don't talk about these things because the conflict in Greenland is bringing up some sort of that they understand what's going on in Ukraine, but they don't talk about it.
Well, let's be clear. When we talk about weakening Denmark, so Denmark has not been sending troops to fight in Ukraine, so they haven't been weakened in terms of manpower. What has happened is they've depleted some of the resources or weapon systems. That has been depleted. But they haven't been necessarily, quote, weakened by Ukraine. It's just what has been exposed is that Denmark is a weak military. It's not a military power at all. It's basically has what's we call a national police force. So Danish soldiers, they may not. You could put it this way: resources that might have been committed to building up naval assets and marine assets, Danish Marines that are capable of getting on board ships, getting off board ships to carry out military operations, they haven't been able to do that because they've shifted resources to Ukraine. That may be accurate. That's different from what, Britain has actually depleted its significant missile reserves, Storm Shadows in particular. At the same time, it's losing manpower. Its soldiers are resigning, getting out of the British Army, and to be frank, the Brits, God, they are. You need to come to Florida. We have what I call these Florida dogs. They're these little bitty dogs. God, they bark all the time. They're obnoxious as hell. And they're not a threat at all. Their owners, when they walk them, they got to keep them on a leash, because if they don't, the hawks will come down and grab them and carry them off and eat them. So that's Britain. Britain is just like a Florida dog, a little bitty, nasty, loud, toothless entity with no military force to speak of, and they pretend like they're a Rottweiler. They're not.
Yeah, barking dogs seldom bite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Larry, how do you find the situation with Canada? Do you think it's a manner of bargaining, the bargaining process that is shaping in the mind of Trump in order to force them to accept whatever comes from the Trump administration or will come from the Trump administration to be accepted by the government in Canada?
No. Look, this is just Trump trolling. Let's say that actually Canada said, okay, yeah, we'll join with the United States. Well, number one, the different provinces in Canada will not want to come in as one to say that Ottawa is the same as the Montreal area, as Newfoundland, as Vancouver, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg. I mean, it's all, it's a very diverse country, number one. So number two, if Canada was really brought into the United States, they don't really have a historic tie with us apart from being our neighbor. And so what? You're going to give 2 senators from each of those states? Well, guess what? All of a sudden, you've changed the Senate from 100 votes to, what are there, 15 different provinces in Canada. So all of a sudden, added an additional 30 senators, add an additional, God knows how many people to the House of Representatives, and bring in people that are going to be basically inclined to support Democrats, not Republicans. As I say, Trump is just trolling. It gives the media something to chase around. This is, people that have cats as pets, they know what it's like to put a ball or a feather on a string and jerk it around in front of the cat, and the cat chases it and paws at it. That's all Trump is doing. Canada is a ball on a string to distract people, because this is not a serious proposal.
Here, the latest package of the United States aid to Ukraine has been announced by Lloyd Austin, $500 billion to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, it seems that the British are talking. Here is Ben Wallace talking about how Zelensky could manage the war in Ukraine.
Why didn't you mobilize your people? You know, in 1939, we mobilized men, and in 1941, the Women at War Act, we mobilized women. Right? And if you are against an enemy that wants to annihilate you, as Adolf Hitler did, then why haven't we mobilized?
So he has not actually recruited as many young men as people.
He hasn't. And Zelensky took a view that he was wanting to preserve the sort of 18 to 28-year-olds or younger, and it's not a mass conscription. Now, you know, I would have said, and I've written it, what I think they should have done is mobilized, asked Europe to train them, right? Because that's not a hard ask. If you ask them to train people, that's not difficult. And then they go back to their houses, they put their helmets under the bed, they put their uniforms in the cupboard, they go back to work, and you can then call them up. And that hasn't happened.
Yeah. He wants to mobilize more people into this meat grinder.
Hey, mobilize yourself first. Hey, see if you can mobilize the Brits. You can't do that. Good God. And train them. We already saw that with the French were training a brigade. Actually, it was half a brigade. They had about 2,000 trainees in France. And as soon as they got deployed back to Ukraine, they defected. You know, they went AWOL. They deserted. So, yeah, this is nonsense. You know, he's playing. He's gambling in a casino with somebody else's money. You know, if you get to gamble, if you get to go to a casino and play and gamble, you know, play whatever game, blackjack or roulette, and somebody else is footing the bill, man, you can have a great time. It's a hoot. It's fun. You don't care if you lose because it ain't your money. That's where Ben Wallace is. God almighty. Feed those Ukrainians into the meat grinder. He don't care. It's not his son. It's not his daughter. It's not his cousin or brother. It's just Ukrainians. Who cares about them? Let them die. That's the attitude of these despicable Europeans, aristocrats.
It's so amazing to see that he's still comparing Putin to Hitler, and the way that these guys, they were still thinking that there are many people out there buying this type of argument to send more people. How's the situation, Larry, with the mercenaries? Because many of these people who are called mercenaries were bought by this sort of attitude that we are fighting Hitler in Ukraine.
Yeah, they're dying. They're dying and being wounded and suffering terrible wounds that they all of a sudden they don't have a government standing behind them to buy them a prosthesis or to deal with their traumatic brain injury. I mean, it really is. It's sad. I know. Just you've got a bunch of the ones I don't understand are the people, the Colombians that are showing up to fight. I mean, really? This is, you know, Ukraine is so not like Colombia. And
we had people from Brazil. I was shocked when I learned about it.
Yeah. You know, they've been bamboozled into some of the nonsense that, you know, they're stopping communism, I guess. You know, this is one of the other big lies that the West continues to tell, to pretend that there's no difference between Vladimir Putin and Joseph Stalin. And you know, you try to even have a rational discussion with people. You might as well be talking to you talk to your dog. You have a better conversation.
Have you heard the talk of Elon Musk with AfD, with this woman? I don't remember her name.
Alice Vidal.
Yeah. She, in this talk, Elon Musk was talking about, that there is more than 2 years we have some sort of stalemate in Ukraine. What's that? What's that? Is that really what's coming from the Trump administration?
Well, it's just, it's fed by the propaganda that's put out and spread in the West. Remember, and without naming some of these pundits, a couple of them are Americans that live in Russia. They were talking last, 6-8 months ago about, it's a stalemate. It's a stalemate in Ukraine, and it's going to go on for years. I called that nonsense 6 to 8 months ago. Now, everybody, oh my God, it's, the end is near. Yeah, the end is near. So for it just shows that Musk can be a multi-billionaire, one of the wealthiest men in the world. But it doesn't mean that he necessarily has a lot of good information, particularly about world political affairs. Now, I know that discussion with Vidal from AfD included her, commenting on the fact that Hitler was a socialist. People going, oh my God, how can you say that? Well, Nazi stands for National Socialists. Okay? So, yeah, he was a socialist, a national socialist. And that's an issue. That's why, a lot of this media stuff is just designed, like I said, it's a cat's toy. Get the cat chasing something, get the dog chasing a squirrel. Just as long as you're chasing something, you're not able to sit down and pay attention to the fact that, hey, you're getting robbed or you're being attacked.
Do you see, because the way that AfD is talking about the foreign policy, it doesn't seem that we're going to have any sort of drastic change in their attitude. The situation with Gaza in the Middle East, the same. She was talking the same way that we are hearing. And with Russia, they don't have any sort of understanding. She was talking about stalemate, as Elon Musk was talking about. What is that going to be a change? Is that really going to change the policy of Germany? I'm talking about the foreign policy, not the domestic policy.
Well, you've already got a change in Germany's foreign policy. So you got the foreign minister Baerbock, and the defense minister at odds with Schultz. They're wanting to send more aid to Ukraine, and Schultz is saying, nine. We're not doing it. So you've already got that split developing within Germany. The election's going to come up. I think AfD is seen as an alternative to the existing policy of providing support to Ukraine. But all of Europe is in flux right now. You can't name me one country that is in a stable political position where, maybe Hungary and Slovakia, where their leaders are actually enjoy, popular support. But you're seeing the traditional establishment in Europe, in the European Union, trying to beat back. They're going to punish the new, they call him the right-wing prime minister in Austria, or that's taking over, and they keep trying to punish Romania, or punish Slovakia, punish Hungary, and if Romania goes with Georgescu, by God, they're going to punish them too. So, Europe is anything but unified, and so within that, Germany has always been a leader, and I think it's entirely likely that you could see Germany backing away out of NATO. They may even use Donald Trump as an excuse to do it. Oh, we're not going to put up with that man, and they'll get out. NATO's really living on borrowed time. It does not have a strong foundation for unity.
It seems that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are forcing Europeans to increase their defense budget to 5% of their GDP, which was opposed by Olaf Scholz was talking about that they're not agreeing on this sort of policy. And here is the United Kingdom talking about it.
Put our money where our mouth is. That starts by facing the facts. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are simply right when they say that Europe needs to do more to defend its own continent. It's myopia to pretend otherwise with Russia on the march. So this government will lay out a clear pathway to reaching 2.5% of our GDP on defence. A figure, lest we forget, that the last Labour government met and was never met by the Tories since David Cameron's cuts. And with John Healey, we will lead and we will change to convince all of our NATO allies that rising defence spending is a strategic necessity. And third, we must forge closer partnerships with the global south. Because the world is larger than the North Atlantic and the Mediterranean. We cannot divorce the Euro-Atlantic from the Indo-Pacific. And the Kremlin has spread its tentacles across the world, spewing out disinformation on every continent, dispatching mercenaries to Africa and seeking closer relations within the BRICS formation. A grim vision of unending competition is not compelling to the vast majority of states.
Yeah.
Can
First,
someone just put a torpedo and sink the British island into the ocean? I mean, these colonialist bastards, these people who are responsible for having murdered millions around the world, millions in Africa, millions in Asia, they're despicable. And someone like Lammy, who comes out of he's in England because of their colonial nonsense. They can't help themselves. They're a serial rapist, in my view. I am. I think in my ancestors came out of England. They got out for a reason. Give them credit. They left for a reason. They said we can't stand around with these people. They're a disgrace. And so he's spewing this nonsense. But notice, we're gonna make up with the global south. The global south doesn't want to be with you. I mean, that's why the French got kicked out of the Sahel. That's why the global south countries are standing up and saying, just like Pink Floyd, another brick in the wall, man. We're not gonna you're not going to tell us what to do anymore. They're fighting back.
and the main question, Larry, is Donald Trump wants 5%. Olaf Scholz is talking about 2%. The United Kingdom 2.5%. But after all, we know what's going on with the economy of these countries in Europe. They're not doing well. How can they increase their defense budget right now and the situation that they're having?
Well, they can increase it and impoverish their own civilians in the process, which is going to further increase domestic political opposition. I mean, that's what we're seeing, and people need to step back and recognize the European Union, by country, is fragmented. You don't have majority parties anymore. You have minority parties that have to go out and cobble together deals with other minority parties. I mean, look at what's happening in the UK. It used to be Labour versus Conservative. Well, now you got Reform Party, and Reform Party is apparently doing better than the Conservative Party. Labour's still the largest on paper, and yet their approval rating is in the toilet. I mean, the Labour saying, Oh yeah, we don't want to investigate gang rape of young girls. Oh no, we're not going to do that. And we're just going to continue to press on with expanding the war in Ukraine. And oh, by the way, you pensioners, you don't get your the money you need to pay for your heating bills. Freeze. Yeah, that's not what I'd call sort of a recipe for political success. So, and it's been replicated in France. Again, Macron, he's about as popular as a dead carcass laying on the road that's been out in the hot sun for a while. Nobody wants to be near it. So Germany as well. I mean, the only country where the leader appears to have some popularity, and I'm talking about sort of the apart from Hungary and Slovakia, their leader is Meloni in Italy, but all the other sort of traditional European powerhouses are no longer powerhouses. Man, they're faltering, and you're not seeing a wave where a group of people are coming together and saying, we're going to overthrow this. It's still pluralities of minorities.
BRICS is just growing bigger and stronger. Indonesia, which was announced on January 1st to be BRICS partner, right now a full member of BRICS.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going? Because we've seen that Lamy was talking about having a better relationship with the global south. It seems that they understand what's going on with BRICS and these countries. And do you think that Donald Trump would let them go with that sort of plan if they decide to get closer to the global south? If you remember, Antony Blinken was bragging about how capable was the United States in cutting off the connection between the Europeans and China.
Well, what's taking place, and in fact, Lamy's language reflects the fact that the agenda is being driven by Russia and China with BRICS. So what you're seeing is the West trying to play catch up. Now, in appealing to the global South, one of the things they're sick and tired of it, they don't want to be bullied. Stop bullying us. And what's Trump doing? We're going to take back the Panama Canal. So, yeah, the West has yet to come up with a strategy. I think the United States and all will continue everything that they're doing to try to sabotage BRICS. But I think BRICS is, it's well on its way to becoming part of a new world order.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today. Great pleasure as always.
All right, my friend. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Have a good week. See you Monday.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.